The rain had been relentless all evening, drumming against the asphalt and forming tiny rivers along the streets of the city. Lena hurried out of the office building, her heels clicking sharply against the wet pavement, echoing through the empty parking lot. Her umbrella had collapsed earlier, the metal ribs bent awkwardly from a sudden gust of wind. She clutched her purse and adjusted her coat, trying to shield herself from the icy droplets. Her phone lay dead in her bag, the battery drained after a long day of back-to-back meetings. Lena's fingers trembled as she fumbled to turn it on, hoping it might miraculously have enough charge to call a ride. But the screen remained stubbornly black. She glanced around. The streets were deserted, lit only by the amber glow of street lights reflecting in puddles. A car passed slowly, its tires hissing over the wet asphalt, and then there was silence again. The sound of approaching footsteps made her jump. A car pulled up beside her, headlights cutting through the mist. The engine was quiet, almost too quiet. The driver stepped out, a man in his late 30s, dressed neatly in a dark jacket that looked slightly too formal for the weather. His face was calm, almost unnervingly so, with a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Need a ride?" he asked, his voice smooth, polite, and slightly low. Lena hesitated. She had intended to call a rideshare, but with her phone dead and the rain soaking her, she was tired and anxious. Yes, thank you," she said finally, forcing herself to sound confident. Something in his gaze lingered too long, though, and a shiver ran down her spine. The man opened the passenger door. "Get in. Don't worry, I know the area well." She slipped into the back seat, her heart hammering as the smell of cigarette smoke hit her, faint but unmistakable. The leather seats were worn, the interior dimly lit by the faint glow of the dashboard. He closed the door with a soft click that sounded louder than expected in the quiet night. For the first few minutes, the ride was uneventful. He asked polite, everyday questions. "Long day at work? Do you live around here?" Lena answered cautiously, noting the way he kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. It wasn't a curious glance. It was the kind of look that seemed to measure her, to assess her. She tried to distract herself, staring out the rain-streaked window at the city lights reflecting in the puddles. But the unease grew. Every turn they took seemed to be slightly off the usual route she would have expected. Lena shifted in her seat, trying to make sense of it. "Are we going the right way?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Relax," he said smoothly, eyes never leaving the road. "I know a faster route. Trust me, you'll be home in no time." Lena nodded, but the knot in her stomach tightened. She reached for her bag, trying to check her phone again, hoping it might have come back to life. Her friend Emma had been texting her repeatedly. With a small surge of hope, she pulled it out, only to realize the battery was completely dead. The stranger noticed her movement. He glanced at her with a faint smile that didn't feel friendly. "Don't worry," he said softly, almost a whisper. "You'll get home safe. For now." Lena's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. The words sent a chill down her spine. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. The stranger occasionally hummed lowly to himself, a tune she didn't recognize. The rain outside intensified, hammering the roof of the car, drowning out almost everything except the occasional swoosh of tires on wet asphalt. Lena's pulse raced. She tried to think rationally, trying to tell herself he was just being cautious, just being polite, but the instinctive dread in her chest told her something was wrong. She remembered the stories she had heard, the ones that always seemed far away, the ones that happened to other people, to strangers in the news. A chill ran down her spine. Was this one of those stories? She shook her head, trying to push the thought away. Surely, she reasoned, nothing like that could happen to her. Then she noticed it, a folded map on the passenger seat, partially open. She could see small red circles on several locations, dates scribbled beside them. Her breath hitched, her mind raced. Could these be addresses, patterns, names? She couldn't make sense of it quickly enough before the stranger noticed her staring. "You curious?" he asked softly, his calm demeanor never faltering, but now there was a hint of amusement in his voice. Lena froze. "It's nothing to worry about," he added. "Just old notes, old memories." She forced a laugh, trying to seem casual. "Right, old memories," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She stared out the window, willing the street lights and passing buildings to distract her from the unease creeping over her. The stranger seemed to notice her tension. "You're nervous," he said. "Most people are, but I promise you're safe." Lena didn't know whether to believe him. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the car continued down streets unfamiliar to her. Every shadow outside seemed to reach toward the windows, and every passing street light felt like a warning. Her friend's last message flashed in her mind. "Text me your location. Don't get in a stranger's car." Too late for that now, she realized. She had no phone, no way to call for help. She was alone in the back seat with a man whose smile didn't reach his eyes, whose calmness felt deliberate, controlled, predatory. The stranger hummed again, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Relax, Lena. You'll be home soon. Just enjoy the ride." And for the first time since she got in the car, she felt the undeniable, icy realization she had made a mistake. Her pulse quickened, the city blurred past in streaks of orange and white, but the unease inside her grew heavier with every turn. Something about this ride didn't feel like just a drive home. Something about the man behind the wheel suggested this night was far from over, and whatever was coming, she wasn't ready for it. The car turned sharply onto a road that Lena didn't recognize. The familiar city lights were gone, replaced by darkened streets and abandoned buildings. Rain pelted the windshield harder, and the wipers struggled to keep up. Lena's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing louder than the last. She tried to calm herself, but the unease she had felt from the moment she got into the car now coiled tightly in her stomach like a snake ready to strike. "Are we going the right way?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though it trembled slightly. "Of course," the stranger said, his tone smooth, almost soothing. "I know a shortcut. You'll be home faster this way." Lena didn't respond. She wanted to believe him. She had to, but her instincts screamed otherwise. The streets became narrower, lined with overgrown trees and cracked sidewalks. Occasionally, street lamps flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward the car like claws. The rainwater splashed over the curbs, creating dark puddles that reflected distorted images of the surroundings. She tried to remember anything she could about escape plans. The doors, were they locked? She had tried them earlier, nothing seemed unusual. She could kick the windows, but the glass looked thick. And even if she got out, where would she run? The streets were deserted, and the city was no longer within reach. The stranger hummed softly, a low, almost melodic tune that made the hair on her neck stand on end. Lena's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, where his gaze occasionally met hers. There was a subtle shift in his expression, calm, almost friendly, but there was something in his eyes now, a glint that was cold, calculating. "Do you live alone?" he asked suddenly. "Yes," Lena replied cautiously. Her throat felt dry. I have a roommate sometimes, but she's out of town." He nodded slowly, as if noting something important. "I see. That must be lonely sometimes. But you're careful, right? You don't go out alone at night?" Lena laughed nervously. I usually don't, but tonight was different. Work ran late." He smiled faintly. Yes, different indeed. Life is full of unexpected moments, isn't it? His words, though polite, carried an edge of menace that Lena couldn't ignore. Every instinct in her screamed that she needed to get out, to run, but fear rooted her in place. Then she noticed it again, the folded map on the passenger seat. Her gaze lingered over the red circles marked in ink, dates scribbled beside them. Her heart stopped. The locations were scattered across the city, all isolated areas, all unfamiliar to her. Could these be his previous victims? Her mind raced, adrenaline flooding her veins. The stranger caught her staring. "Curious, aren't you?" His voice was calm, almost amused. "It's just old notes, nothing to worry about." Lena forced a laugh. "Old notes," she repeated, but her voice shook. Her fingers clenched the strap of her purse so tightly it dug into her skin. Minutes passed in tense silence. The stranger occasionally hummed, and the tires splashed through the puddles on the cracked asphalt. Lena tried to focus on anything other than the fear gnawing at her. The rhythm of the wipers, the blur of rain, the orange glow of a distant street lamp. But her mind kept circling back to the map, to the circles, to the dates. Suddenly, the car swerved. Lena's breath caught in her throat as the tires skidded over a slick patch of road. The headlights caught a sign that read Industrial Park, Dead End. Panic surged through her. "Why are we here?" she demanded, her voice rising slightly. The stranger didn't answer immediately. He kept driving slowly, his eyes fixed on the road. Then he turned slightly to look at her. "Relax," he said, his voice eerily calm. "You're safe. I just wanted to take the scenic route. It's quieter here, peaceful." Lena's hands shook as she gripped the seat. "Quieter? This looks abandoned. No one's around. You're not taking me home, are you?" He tilted his head slightly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I am taking you home, but first, a little detour, just a short one." Her mind raced. Detour? Her instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. She tried to calm herself, telling herself she had to stay alert, to observe every detail. She noticed the rearview mirror again, how he watched her from time to time, as if he could see her fear. And the more she noticed, the more she realized how deliberate his calmness was. The car came to a stop in an empty lot, the headlights illuminating rusted machinery and broken concrete. Lena's breath caught. There was no one else around. She tried to open the door. Locked. She yanked at it. Locked. Panic surged. The stranger's voice was soft, almost soothing, yet carried an unmistakable authority. "I told you you're safe. No one's going to hurt you as long as you follow along." Lena's mind raced. Every story she had ever heard about people disappearing in the city flashed before her eyes. She had seen the news reports, the warnings about strangers, the horror stories she had always dismissed. But now she was living one. Her eyes darted around the car, looking for anything, keys, a phone, a tool. But the interior was clean, almost meticulously arranged. There was nothing she could use. The stranger reached into his coat pocket casually, as if checking something, and the movement made Lena freeze. "Please, I just want to go home," she whispered, her voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "And you will. But first, just stay calm. Everything will be fine. I promise." He leaned back in his seat, humming again softly. Lena's pulse pounded in her ears. She realized with a sinking feeling that this man was not just a stranger offering a ride. He was someone who thrived on control, who measured fear like a precious commodity. Time stretched. The rain fell harder. The empty lot around them was silent, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Lena's thoughts raced. Escape seemed impossible. She was trapped, and the stranger knew it. And in that moment, a single terrifying thought crystallized in her mind. This ride, this detour, was not random. She was not just a passenger. She was part of a plan she could not yet understand, and the consequences of resisting were far too dangerous to contemplate. The lot was silent except for the rain striking the roof of the car in sharp staccato bursts. Lena's hands trembled on her lap as she tried to steady her breath. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to act, but the stranger's calm presence was almost hypnotic, a predator's patience radiating through the confined space. He leaned back in his seat, his fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel, humming that low, unsettling tune. Lena's eyes darted to the map again, the red circles like targets etched into her mind. She realized with a sickening clarity that she was now part of one of them. The fear that had been building for the last hour crystallized into a single icy thought. He was going to kill her. "Why are we here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. The stranger finally looked at her, tilting his head slightly, his calm smile sending a chill through her. "Because some things," he said softly, "require patience, and you, Lena, are quite special." "Special," she echoed, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Yes," he said, leaning closer, his face partially illuminated by the dim dashboard lights. "Some people notice things, some people feel things, and you're aware. That makes the experience more satisfying." Lena felt bile rise in her throat. Every nerve in her body screamed to escape, but every move she considered seemed impossible. The doors were locked. The windows were thick, the glass unyielding. She thought about screaming, but the lot was abandoned, and her voice would carry only for a fleeting moment before the silence swallowed it. The stranger reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small flashlight. He clicked it on, pointing the beam directly at the map. "See these circles?" he asked, his voice casual, almost cheerful. "Each one is a story, a person, a journey. And tonight, your story begins." Lena's stomach turned. The horror of the situation slammed into her with full force. She realized that every carefully calculated movement of this man, every word, every glance, had been designed to control her, to manipulate her fear. Her mind raced. She had to think, had to act, had to survive. She tried reasoning with him. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice quivering. "I'll just go back. I'll leave. I'll forget this ever happened. You don't need to." The stranger interrupted her, his tone suddenly sharp. "Don't interrupt me. Listen, Lena, you will understand soon enough. Fear is beautiful when it's genuine, when it's alive in someone who thinks they have a choice. That's what makes it." He paused, smiling faintly. "Irreplaceable." Panic clawed at Lena's chest. Her eyes darted around the car, searching for anything she could use as a weapon, her purse, her keys, the flashlight. But he was already watching, noting every movement. She realized any sudden action could trigger the next stage of his plan. Desperation pushed her to try a feint. She shifted in her seat, pretending to faint, letting her head fall toward the door. I can't, she murmured, her body limp. The stranger's eyes flickered with interest. "Oh, not quite as easy as you look," he said softly, leaning closer. He reached toward her, but before his hand could touch her, Lena sprang up, wrenching at the door handle with all her strength. It didn't budge. "Let's not waste time pretending, shall we?" he said, his calm demeanor cracking slightly, revealing a flash of something darker, excitement, anticipation, and a cruel satisfaction. Lena's mind raced. Every story she had ever heard about attacks, about abductions, every nightmare scenario she had imagined since childhood flashed before her. She realized she had no chance at negotiating, no chance at reasoning. Her only option was raw, desperate action. She kicked at the door, ramming her shoulder against it. The stranger grabbed her arm, but she twisted violently, breaking free momentarily. Rain streaked her face, mixing with sweat, as adrenaline surged through her veins. Every instinct screamed to fight, to run, to survive. The stranger leaned back, watching her struggle with an almost clinical interest. "Brave," he said softly. "I like that, but bravery doesn't change fate." Lena's pulse raced. She looked around the car again, her eyes landing on the flashlight still clutched in his hand. A plan formed in her mind. Risky, perhaps, impossible, but better than the certainty of sitting still. She lunged toward the flashlight, knocking it from his grip. It rolled under the seat, and he cursed softly. Seizing the moment, Lena tried to grab the gear shift, but he anticipated her movement, twisting his body to block her. A struggle ensued, hands grappling, the rain outside pounding like the drums of her accelerating terror. In a sudden, terrifying flash, he pushed her back with such force that she hit the side of the car, momentarily dazed. Her vision blurred, and the world narrowed to the pounding of her heart and the dark, calculating eyes staring at her. "You see," he said softly, leaning closer, "fear is beautiful, but it must end." Lena's stomach dropped as the words sunk in. She realized with a sickening certainty that the struggle had reached its inevitable conclusion. Her mind raced through everything she had read about survival, everything she had imagined, but in that moment there was no escape. The world seemed to slow. The stranger's calm mask gave way to a glint of something far more sinister, pure, cold efficiency. Every move he made was measured, deliberate, rehearsed. Lena's limbs felt heavy, her strength ebbing as the truth became undeniable. She was about to become part of the pattern she had glimpsed on the map. The final moments were a blur of motion, a grasp, a shove, a sudden violent act. Lena's scream was swallowed by the rain, her body slumping against the seat as the stranger's calm returned instantly, the predator's composure settling like a mask back over his face. The car was silent. Only the rain fell, drumming against the roof as if mourning what had just occurred. The stranger sat for a moment, surveying the scene with detached precision, wiping away any trace of the struggle. The world outside was oblivious, unaware that another story had ended in that abandoned lot. Finally, he leaned back, humming softly again, a slow, deliberate melody that belied the horror of what had just occurred. He started the car, tires hissing against the wet asphalt, and drove away, leaving the empty, rain-soaked lot behind. As he merged back into the shadowed streets, the map lay open briefly on the passenger seat, the red circles mocking the emptiness of the lot. The predator had moved on, already thinking ahead, already planning his next hunt. Lena's story ended, but the night was far from over. Morning broke with a gray, washed-out light, the rain now reduced to a steady drizzle. The abandoned lot, where the night's horror had occurred, looked deceptively ordinary. Puddles mirrored the pale sky, and the rusted machinery stood silent, forgotten. But one detail disrupted the calm: Lena's car. A jogger spotted it as he rounded the corner, his sneakers slapping against wet asphalt. The engine was off, doors locked, and rainwater ran down the windshield in streaks. Curiosity drew him closer, and when he peered through the glass, he saw something that made his stomach twist: a scarf, damp and twisted on the passenger floor, and faint streaks that hinted at struggle. He immediately called the police, his voice tight with urgency. Detectives arrived quickly, the lot cordoned off with yellow tape that flapped lazily in the morning breeze. Officers examined the car carefully, taking photographs, dusting for fingerprints, and searching for any clue that might hint at what had happened. The rain-soaked ground revealed faint tire tracks, veering off into the distance and disappearing into the industrial back streets. A discarded coffee cup and a crumpled map on the passenger seat became the first fragments of the puzzle. Detective Marcus Hale, a seasoned investigator with sharp eyes and years of experience, crouched beside the map. He noticed the red circles, dates carefully written beside each. His heart sank. This wasn't random. It was a pattern. And that pattern hinted at something sinister, a serial predator who had been carefully choosing victims, each ride a calculated hunt. "He's methodical," Hale said, voice low, almost to himself. "This isn't a one-off. This is a pattern, and Lena's just the latest. Whoever did this has been planning for months, maybe years." Back at the precinct, the news spread quickly. Social media erupted with posts about the abandoned car, the mysterious stranger who had picked up Lena, and warnings to others about accepting rides from unknown drivers. Rideshare companies issued statements, residents called in sightings of suspicious vehicles, and the city collectively held its breath, haunted by the thought that the predator was still out there. Meanwhile, the stranger continued his calculated routine. He cleaned his car meticulously, removing any trace of evidence, and reviewed his previous maps and notes. Each victim was cataloged, each location circled, each moment remembered. He hummed softly, as though the night's events were a symphony to him, and already he was scanning for the next perfect target. Detectives combed through surveillance footage from nearby streets and gas stations, piecing together his movements. They discovered the car had made stops at desolate areas hours before, and cross-referencing missing person reports revealed a chilling connection, a string of unsolved disappearances, each matching the pattern from the map in Lena's car. Hale studied the footage for hours, trying to pick out distinguishing features, a nervous habit, a glint of light from his eyes, the way he adjusted the rearview mirror. The man's calm, controlled demeanor made him almost invisible to ordinary observation, a ghost moving through the city unnoticed. At the same time, Lena's family and friends were in shock. Her roommate returned to the apartment to find a note on the door from her employer, stating she had left late for a meeting. When Lena didn't answer her phone, worry escalated into terror. Her mother, frantic, called the police, demanding answers. The investigation became intensely personal for everyone involved. The detectives could feel the urgency and fear radiating from the family, driving them to act faster, smarter. Forensic teams discovered subtle clues inside the car, a fingerprint smudged on the door handle, faint scuffs in the backseat upholstery, and traces of fibers on the floor, all pieces of evidence that confirmed a struggle had taken place. But the stranger had left no DNA, no personal items, nothing that could immediately identify him. He was careful, calculating, professional. News coverage intensified. Headlines screamed, "Mysterious stranger claims another victim," and "Police warn of dangerous ride at night." Citizens shared photos of the abandoned car, spreading awareness while fear gnawed at the community. Rideshare apps warned users to check driver credentials and avoid unverified vehicles. Social media became a platform for fear and speculation, but despite all the attention, the stranger remained elusive. Hale sat back in his chair late into the night, piecing together the fragments. Every red circle on the map, every abandoned car, every last trace of evidence painted a grim picture, a predator who thrived on fear and control. And the hardest part, predicting his next move. Meanwhile, somewhere on the other side of the city, the stranger adjusted his rearview mirror again, scanning the streets with the calm precision of a hunter. A lone figure walked along the sidewalk, unaware of the eyes tracking her, unaware that the patterns were forming once again. A faint smile crossed his lips. The investigation continued, the search widening. Police reached out to rideshare companies, analyzed past complaints, and sought witnesses who might have glimpsed the predator. Every lead was followed, yet every clue seemed to vanish before it could reveal the full picture. And then, at the edge of the city, a tip came in. A driver reported a car matching the description, dark, unmarked, quiet, picking up a passenger late at night. Hale felt a jolt of urgency. Could this be him again? Could this be the next victim? Every instinct screamed that time was critical. The story ends on a tense, open note. The predator remains at large, carefully planning, watching, waiting. The audience is left with a chilling realization. Lena's story is over, but the cycle continues. The fear, the tension, and the hunt are far from finished. The stranger is still out there, blending into the night, and anyone could be next.